What's going on, big ballers? It's your boy MJG coming at you with another episode of the Fantasy Fumble. Today, we are coming at you with the first week of football finally behind us. Man, was it exciting! We had a lot of action and also a lot of injuries, which we do expect in fantasy. Do we expect it the first week? Not so much, but hey, you got to adapt and you got to move on and hit that free agency
That's
waiver
right.
wire. And Joe, how the hell you doing today, brother? How was your week?
Not a bad week. Great to just be sitting back on the couch watching football. Um, I actually let my son choose one of my fantasy teams this year, and they're doing really well. So he's excited about that, watching football together. I went 3-3. I'm in 6 leagues. I went 3-3. But going into Monday night, everything was up in the air. I thought I was going to go 0-6. And Monday night really turned things around. And in one of those leagues, I had McCaffrey, but luckily I had Jordan Mason. But yeah, good finish. Rough start, but good finish. I was really happy to go 3-3, just because it was not looking good.
I think that losing isn't so bad in the first few weeks, guys, because obviously you get to get first priority on that waiver wire, right? So if you were somebody that was hurting at tight end, you had the opportunity to probably pick up, some pretty key players, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw you grabbed Isaiah Likely, and everyone was looking for him, so that was a good move.
There's another tight end too, Colby Parkinson,
Yeah,
for the Rams. He looked like he was getting a really good workload over there. I think he was 5 for 7, so he was getting some targets. And when I actually watched the game, he actually looked pretty fluid and some good route running out there. So I could see him running the Tyler Higbee role in the Rams offense.
there it was, as you just said, a lot going on in week one. So I'm going to run through some news and notes, some injury updates, and then some possible waiver ads. Now we're going to kick things off with running back. Obviously, everyone knows that Christian McCaffrey was a last-minute scratch on Monday night. Really disrupted a lot of things for a lot of people. And it's not looking good for this week either. Right now, they're talking about not just a calf strain, but an Achilles strain, some kind of soreness in his Achilles, some kind of a tendonitis that's probably going to keep him out of week 2. So hopefully you have Jordan Mason or another option. A lot of questions right now about Christian McCaffrey, if this is serious or not, but plan accordingly. Miami Dolphins running backs, Raheem Mostert has been ruled out for week 2. And Devon Achane, his ankle, I believe it's a mild ankle sprain, but right now they're treating it as a game time decision against Buffalo. And we were talking before we started rolling about Jeff Wilson or Jalen Wright. Who's the right choice there? I don't know. I believe there's a lot to be seen from Jalen Wright, but people are talking about him big time. There's a lot of buzz around Jalen Wright. So when I had the option, I grabbed Jalen Wright in a couple leagues. A lot of people, he was already on their radar, so they already had him rostered. But I know you grabbed Jeff Wilson Jr. So, that's yet to be seen about who's going to be the better play if Devon Achane does not suit up this week.
Yeah, I think for that situation, so I think anybody for Jalen Wright, he was on anybody's radar who ended up picking a Miami running back. Because if you pick Raheem Mostert or Devin Achane, you needed to handcuff him, right? And Jalen Wright was a logical choice for that. But watching like the parts of the Miami game, I don't know if I watched the full thing because obviously it was NFL Red Zone, right? So you're not going to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
But watching that there, I was able to see some pretty good drives from them. And Jeff Wilson came out there and he had a couple really big runs. And that reminded me of the Jeff Wilson that has fresh legs. So when Jeff Wilson comes out, he's fresh for a couple games and then he starts to wear down and then he breaks down, right? So I think as far as long-term play, obviously Jalen Wright's your pickup all day long. He should not even be on your waiver wire period. But if you're looking for a spot start for the next game, maybe 2, Jeff Wilson wouldn't be a bad flex.
And that's a perfect way to put it, is that it really feels like that is pretty much his MO. Is Jeff Wilson will have a couple awesome games, like very impressive games, and then it's just like the wheels fall off and you have to make an adjustment. But you're right. That's the way it's always been. When he was on the Niners, it was the same story. And I completely agree that if you're just looking for a couple weeks, and I am real, the leagues where I have Jalen Wright, I'm very deep at running back. So he is more of a bench stash. But if you just need someone to fill in for a couple weeks, the better move probably is Jeff Wilson. One last running back to keep an eye on. You and I both have him rostered in a couple leagues, is Kenneth Walker. There's a lot of uncertainty going into week 2, and he looks like a game time decision too. If he does play, he's clearly going to be limited.
Yeah, hopefully you got Charbonnet when you first did the draft, because he was on most people's radar. And when Charbonnet took over late in this last game too, he had actually a pretty good performance. So, and he's always looked good when he does play. So, if he's playing another spot start, boom, you're actually getting a full workload out of Charbonnet. You're not getting a 15-point game. I'm thinking like a 20 to 25-point game from him in a PPR league, because he could catch out of the backfield as well.
Now, at wide receiver, Jordan Addison did not practice. If he does play, he will definitely be limited. I wouldn't start him in any format. T. Higgins did not practice. Don't expect him to play this week. Now, 2 Chicago Bears. So the chances are DJ Moore is going to have a big day. But Keenan Allen did not practice. Keep an eye on that. Plan accordingly. And Rome Odunze, with the knee injury, did not practice either. He shouldn't be in your lineup either way, not right now. So, again, could be a big day for DJ Moore. Yet to be seen what happens with Keenan. But I expect him to actually play and just be limited. But that's the thing with Keenan Allen. He goes into every week. That's for his entire career. He goes into every week with a Q next to his name, and he just comes out, plays like a monster. So you never put anything past him. Marquise Brown, he was trending towards playing earlier this week, but probably not going to. And if he does play, he's not going to do anything for you. So he's not in your lineup.
No, play Xavier Worthy, guys.
Oh,
he's your play.
For sure. Now at tight end, man, what a shit show. Jake Ferguson did not practice today, but he is expected to play. Now, it's real hard to say. I mean, that injury actually looked worse than it was. But if he is going to play, he'll probably be limited or on a snap count. But at tight end, what are you going to do? You know, if he's your only option, you kind of have to play him. David Njoku rolled out for week 2. Not sure how long he's going to be out, but that sucks because he was like the only good part of that offense right now, at least. Amari Cooper hasn't really done much yet. Dalton Schultz did not practice today, Wednesday. We're recording on Wednesday for Thursday. But again, I don't know what to tell you because there's so few options at tight end. I don't really know what to tell you to do. If right now he's questionable, I guess have a backup plan, but what's your backup, you know? Quarterback, Jordan Love, going to be out for a few weeks. And with that situation, I would say you can lean heavily on Josh Jacobs. You are going to expect Green Bay to do nothing but run the ball. And if you do have Josh Jacobs, you're going to probably have a big day with him. But I would stay away from every Green Bay receiver because without Jordan Love, who knows what to expect. I understand that Jordan Reed had an unbelievable – or Jordan Reed had an – or is it Jaden? Jaden Reed.
It is Jaden. Mm-hmm. You had it right.
Jaden Reed had an unbelievable week, but completely different quarterback, completely different game now. You can't rely on him. Even if Jordan Love was playing, you can't expect that again. But I would, have my fingers crossed for double digits from any of the Green Bay receivers at this point until Jordan Love gets back. Now that wraps up our news and notes, and we're going to get into our hot matchups, cold calls, big balls calls, and of course the shit calls. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey there, my name is Manny James Gonzalez with PRB, and I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, military relocation pro, and big supporter of 2A and veterans' rights. My specialty is VA transactions. I'm also experienced in all parts of real estate.
I've been living in Florida for over 20 years, and I can tell you we still believe in freedom down here. One of the greatest job markets, excellent economy, and no state income tax. When it comes to an agent, you want one that's going to be honest, not afraid of a fight, and most importantly, willing to do the things that some agents are unwilling to do.
And what's that, Manny?
Shoot straight, Dan. If you're ever considering buying in Central Florida, you need somebody you can trust, and I got your six. I'm Manny James Gonzalez, find land for the free and home for the brave.
Oof, it's getting hot in here. It's time for today's hot matchups of the week. Right, for my hot matchup, I ended up going with the Rams versus the Cardinals this weekend. It's a divisional game. It's in Arizona. It's going to be good weather. Both have really good offenses. Last week, the Cardinals struggled a little bit on offense. I don't think the Rams defense is that great this year without Aaron Donald. So I expect there to be a lot of scoring on the Cardinals side because I already know for a fact there will be a lot of scoring on the Rams side. Doesn't matter who's catching passes over there. Matty Ice is out there throwing it to everyone. Man, Tyler Johnson's out there catching passes. Demarcus Robinson, obviously Cooper Kupp's back to his MVP form from 2 years ago. Right. So, the Rams are going to run it, and then Kyron Williams in the backfield. So I think it's going to be a really fun game. I'm super excited for it. I got a lot of stock in the Rams team, I would say, more than Cardinals, but definitely either way, going to be fun to watch.
Oh, yeah, and I'm looking forward to that game big time. You know, from everything we heard during preseason, it seems like that first game was just kind of a fluke and that Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison will be fine. I expect this game to be a big bounce back for everyone on that offense. And on the other side of the ball, like you just said, Cooper Kupp back in prime form, and Stafford spreads the ball out a lot. And then, of course, you've got Kyler in the back, or I'm sorry,
Kyron.
I'm struggling today with names. But then you've got Kyron in the backfield. And, you know, I dropped Blake Corum in like the 3 leagues I had him, which might have been a little premature. But since he didn't touch the ball, it seems really clear that Kyron Williams is going to be the dude that's running the show back there. And I expect another huge day from him too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Now for my hot matchup, I have the Buccaneers versus the Lions. Baker Mayfield looked incredible in week 1 with nearly 300 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns. Chris Godwin had 1 touchdown. And although he couldn't find the end zone, Rachaad White played really well and finished with over 100 yards. The Lions are a great team all around, but they allowed over 300 passing yards against the Rams last week. So I expect a similar flow against the Buccaneers this week. Baker Mayfield is just going to be passing all over them. And when he does need a little dump off to Rachaad White, all day. So expect a lot of offense on both sides of the football field. And then, of course, the Lions on the other side. Despite pulling off an overtime win last week, they didn't look that great through the air, unless your name was Jameson Williams, who was incredible with over 100 yards and a touchdown. But Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta had a quiet day, and then David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs combined for over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the run game looked incredible, but I think Jared Goff and his receiving core is going to bounce back in a big way this week, and you're just going to see a shootout.
Oh, yeah. I definitely agree with that because Amon-Ra to have, the yardage he did and Sam Laporta, they both got shut down. They weren't getting any looks. And that wasn't how either of those guys like to go out. So you're going to see a lot of attitude this week, a lot. And then the Bucks always bring attitude because Baker is cocky. So they're going to match that attitude. Mike Evans is a fiery guy too, so he's going to catch a couple bombs. So this will be a really fun shootout. I'm excited to see it because at the end of the day, I do have some stock in some lines, of course. I got a couple stocks and running backs for the Bucks, but at the end of the day, I think either way, they're both great teams, and it's going to be a fun matchup.
Absolutely. And I got a lot of stock in both. Again, as we said many, many times, we're Detroit Lions fans here at Sports Minds, and we're heavily invested in that team every fantasy year. And you know what time it is now, Manny. It's time for the cold matchup of the week. And I'm going to kick things off with the Browns versus the Jags. It doesn't get much worse on offense than the Cleveland Browns. I'm not even sure where to begin. I guess we can start with Deshaun Watson, who is possibly the biggest bust in NFL history. David Njoku is out with an ankle sprain, and their best wide receiver, Amari Cooper, only had 2 catches for 16 yards last week. Now, that probably says more about Deshaun Watson than Amari Cooper because it was 9 targets and 2 catches. But still, the situation is really bad. And Jerome Ford is the only player that I would start from the Browns this week. Now, on the other side of the ball, the wide receiver core in Jacksonville is so muddled, it's hard to trust any of them on a weekly basis. It's one thing when you have 3 studs in Houston, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins. You start those guys with a smile on your face. But with the Jaguars, you're crossing your fingers and just hoping for 10 to 12 points. Now, ATN, a must start every week, no question. So it's a similar situation as Jerome Ford. It's like you got a running back on the Browns and you got a running back on Jacksonville. Other than that, you're staying away from this game.
Yeah, anytime you have a defensive game, you're always playing the running backs on that team because the defense is going to keep the offense off the field from the other side. So that means that the team that's struggling is just going to run the ball and pound it a bunch of times. So definitely always a good recipe for volume. So you will definitely, I agree with you. It could definitely be a low scoring game. I wish the Jags could get their stuff together and be a little bit better, but unfortunately, they still haven't addressed that O-line the way they should have. So they're about to play a really good Browns defense. On the Browns side, you're right. Deshaun Watson is a nightmare. I don't think he's a bust, though. 3 years, he played great for the Texans. Would I put him above Jamarcus Russell? No, absolutely not. Jamarcus just totally stunk up the Raiders, right? At least Deshaun gave these Houston Texans fans some highlights, right?
I was talking more about for the Browns. It was the biggest bust ever.
Yeah, for the Browns.
With that deal they gave him,
that
guaranteed
it was
money.
A horrible deal.
Yeah.
But they put that on themselves. Nobody was giving that kind of money. The Browns wanted that talent. They knew there was a scandal going on, and guess what? They wanted to try to cash in during a scandal, and that's what they get. For karma just bit them in the ass.
Another thing, as you're just talking about their defense, Browns D is a good start. If you got them, for sure you're going to play them. They should put up a lot of points this week.
Well, my cold call, I have the Chargers versus the Panthers. Even Vegas thinks it's going to be a horrible game. They have the overall point spread at like 39 overall. So that means they think that it's going to be like one of the lower games. I don't think it was the lowest slate on the slate. I'm not a betting guy, so I don't know what all that stuff means. Don't ask me, guys. But I know what a spread means, and I know that's what they think they're going to score. And so at the end of the day, they think it's going to be low scoring, and the Panthers are kind of a disaster. Until they get Jonathan Brooks, they're just really going to be struggling to provide a run game with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. Wide receiver core, Adam Thielen's not going to be able to replicate that magic from last year. He's a year older, and he's in his mid-30s now. And then, of course, Xavier Legette is good, but the problem may be Bryce Young. Who knows? Maybe that O-line. So just don't think that team's ready the second game in. And then on the Chargers side, they had a good week last week. They may build upon that. So Chargers may be the side that you do want to play. But that's going to be most of the points in the game. There's not going to be much on the other end, on the Panther side.
Yeah, I think that the large chunk of the scoring will come from the Chargers. And J.K. Dobbins, what a nice surprise. Of course, he's on my bench. But, I'm going to play him this week, and I'm looking forward to that.
Now, for my shit call of the week, I got to eat crow on Mr. Sam Darnold, man. I was bashing this guy left and right for the last couple of weeks as far as like he's terrible. He couldn't dump the ball off to Christian McCaffrey. And I think he heard me, because he played on fire. I mean, the guy went 19 for 24, 208 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, which is not like a stud fantasy quarterback at all. But it was a stud fantasy quarterback this week in fantasy because it was not a high scoring fantasy week. It was a terrible one. So my shit call was a combination of that as well. So thanks a lot, guys. You really let me down. So I'm just kidding.
I don't think anyone saw that coming. I have mentioned a few times before that I feel like Justin Jefferson is quarterback proof, but that was nice to see that Sam Darnold actually was playing pretty respectable football.
Yeah, he dumped it off pretty well.
Now for my shit call, I'm kind of going the other direction. I was talking up Drake London a lot during preseason, even before preseason, and he finished the day with 2 catches for 15 yards. I mean, a lot of that, maybe most of that was on Kirk Cousins, but I was also talking up Kirk Cousins a lot. The guy was such a stud last year before he got injured, but I think it's going to take him a little longer than we thought to settle into that Falcons offense and just get past that Achilles injury. So maybe temper your expectations on Drake London for a couple more weeks, because I think it's going to be a little bit longer before he puts up those respectable numbers that we are hoping for. So that was my shit call, man. I was just really high on Drake London. Surprisingly enough, he didn't fall to me in any drafts. So I actually don't have him on any of my fantasy teams, but I was really high on him. I still am high on him. But I expected him to come out with a bang, and I expected Kirk Cousins to be feeding him the ball all day, and that is not what happened at all. So hopefully he rebounds this week, but if he doesn't, give it a couple more weeks. Don't overreact and trade him just yet.
Yeah, I definitely I agree with him bouncing back 100%, just because Kirk Cousins didn't have an offseason, man. He tore his Achilles. He was rehabbing the whole, offseason. He was trying to get back in shape just to get back into the team. And, he might have rushed his rehab. So now he's not feeling probably 100%. He's out there, playing with a brand new group of guys, and he still has to get those reps in with those guys. So until he gets all those practice reps in, it's not going to be like a clear-cut connection, and that would take some weeks to get that chemistry. So I definitely agree. Buy low on Drake London now, because if he does have his blow-up game this next game, he's going to go right back to where everyone else valued him. So I was actually successful. I think you saw that. I pulled off a trade for Drake London in one league. So,
yeah.
I'm very high on him now as far as his value.
And to kind of piggyback on that same idea, Kyler Murray did not come out hot like a lot of people expected. And this was my reservations with him, which is why I didn't have him in our top 15 quarterbacks video, because I was just a little hesitant on how long it was going to take him to get back, how long he was going to fall in sync with his offense. And I think now is the time, and it's probably unlikely, but if you can get Marvin Harrison Jr., now is the time, because 2-3 more weeks I expect them to be fully in sync with one another and him have some explosive games.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's selling low on Marvin Harrison.
Probably not.
They got him in the back end of the, for back end or front end of the second round. They're probably not giving him up. I'd say at least the middle.
Similar to where Drake London fell, though. So,
yeah, similar.
Let's get into our big balls calls of the week. All right, boys, let him hang. Let him swing. Time for the big balls call of the week. Now, my big balls call is that Mike Evans has another 2-touchdown game against the Lions this week. The Lions secondary last week struggled a lot, and Baker Mayfield is going to exploit that again. The game script is perfect for Mike Evans to have another big day and possibly 2 touchdowns.
Oh, yeah. That would be a big day. And you know what? If he does have those 2 touchdowns, they're probably going to be 40, 50-yard plus touchdowns. So they'll be big bonus points.
That would be awesome.
Yes, sir. Pretty big balls call there, Joe.
Well, you hit on your big balls call with 2 touchdowns last week for Xavier Worthy. And, I mean, that's a much bigger balls call because you're talking about a rookie's debut in the NFL. So give a round of applause for that one.
Thank you. Even a blind squirrel gets a nut every once in a while.
I mean, that was a huge balls call, not just a big balls call. But who's your big balls call this week?
All right, for my big balls call, I'm gonna take a bounce back performance for a gentleman that only had 48 rushing yards last week, Mr. Jonathan Taylor. The reason why he only had 48 is because the passing offense was so explosive that they just kind of went through the air. But my big balls call is that he's going to have 100 yards rushing, 150 all-purpose yards. So that means 50 receiving yards. And he's going to have 2 touchdowns this week for his bounce-back week. They're playing against Green Bay. Green Bay, as you know, got shredded by the Eagles' rush offense, which it was Saquon Barkley, granted. But I think that Jonathan Taylor is also an elite back. And when it comes to the passing off defense, Green Bay is much better on the passing defense. So they're going to shut it down with Jair Alexander in the backfield. And so that's going to open it up for a rushing game. So you're going to see a lot of Anthony Richardson quarterback options to JT. And it's just going to be a really fun game to watch. Old school hard nose.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Saquon was unbelievable last week, but that's such a great point. And yeah, JT's JT. He could easily exploit them for 2 touchdowns this week. No doubt.
They have a good O-line, so, I mean, definitely possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate all of your support. You guys are so freaking awesome. We just want to tell you thank you so much for joining us here again today for another episode. Please make sure to tune in again. Joe, did you have anything to tell these beautiful people?
Just tune in every week for our Thursday night episode or Thursday episode. Depends on when you watch it, where we cover Thursday night football and all the Sunday games. But also tune in throughout the week for our player profiles, where we just talk about people. If there's some buzz around a player, there's a good chance we're going to be talking about him too.
But ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate the love and support. You guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much for joining us here. And we'll see you same time, same place here. Fantasy Football Sports Minds. Take care, guys.